the SM Media Podcast Network. Hi folks, and welcome to the latest episode of the SM Media Horse Racing Show. I'm Scott McPike. It's always a pleasure to be your host, and we have a busy week to recap on, and it's not done yet because there's a lot of action to come in the days following. It is always a pleasure to be joined by from the Scottish Daily Mail, Callum McClurkin. Callum, how are we?
Hi there, yeah, all good. It's that time. It's still in between seasons, and it's quite tricky. But Punchestown to look forward to now, and of course the Guineas weekend as well. It's coming quite around the corner. So yeah, it's all happening. There's a few types that are kind of looking like Royal Asset contenders as well. So you're definitely kind of beginning to really fully switch from the jumps into the flat, but there's still Punchestown as well to deal with.
Yep, we've got a busy Punchestown to look at. We'll look at Tuesday and Wednesday in this show. We'll be back on Thursday where we'll do the rest of the week at Punchestown, and we'll also cover the Guineas in that show. But we've got a lot of action to recap on. No doubt we'll start at Fairyhouse. Let's just go for the kind of big races. We'll start on Sunday where the Willowwarm Gold Cup looked to be Willie Mullins had a strong hand in it. Turned out to be the case. You fancied Spindleberry for this for quite a while. She ended up winning pretty well. I thought probably putting the best round of jumping. Atlantique obviously fell quite early. Spindleberry though, like, what was it about her you thought was kind of suited for this, and like is she potentially a horse that can step up going forward?
Yeah, probably a little bit fresh. I just come back from Fairyhouse the last day, and she's just going through the grade quite nicely. 3 for 3 over fences, and I don't know if Paul Townend picked Champ Kylie, but he's 2 years older, and I think we know how good he really is. So, and Atlantique, I think he's a bit of a soft touch personally. I know he fell quite early days, we didn't quite find out, but those two are always going to be handy. I think they're just going to set it up for Spindleberry quite nicely. And 3-1 was a decent price, and one of the precious few things that I've got right recently. That was a good performance. And look, she looks like she's potentially Mare's chase class. The thing why she was fresh is that she needed this kind of ground. She does cut on the ground, maybe a bit like Bilo in essence. Probably needed where she kind of maybe left her spring season behind by not kind of looking for that kind of ground and going for maybe a couple of unsuitable assignments in the spring. But she's just kind of one of these Willie Mullins spring mares that are coming out at the right time, and he's very good at kind of holding them back and producing well for spring. But she jumped really well. He's gone from listed into the Grade 1 company. Okay, her task was made a lot easier by the fall of Atlantique, but it's a race that he's won with Gold Cup types. Alban Photo Gallop and Deschamps won this, and that's the kind of problem the mare's face. If she goes that route next season, because she might be a bit better than that, and she might want further and softer ground. She might need a kind of 3-mile trip in the future, and she certainly wasn't stopping at the line and travelling pretty comfortably. So she's definitely not going to come back and trip. And yeah, it'll be interesting where she goes, because the gather already have Dino Blue, who's kind of 2-miler, 2.5-miler. This could be a top graded horse. It's 2.5, 3-miler really, and it's another horse that adds a lot of depth to Willie Mullins' options at the top table.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of Willie Mullins, he picked up the other Grade 1 on Sunday with Aurora Vega winning the Honeysuckle Mares Novices Hurdle. Bit of a funny race. I would say a lot of horses underperformed. Again, like it's one of those you can maybe... I think there'll be excuses for a lot of the kind of big ones. I thought the Big Westerner, I just think she struggled with it. I think Area of Entitlement's probably another one that a lot of these horses might be in season but don't know. But Aurora Vega, clearly there's something there. Quite a tricky horse to follow this season, but she's had her kind of day in the sun in terms of winning a Grade 1. Like, Townend obviously picked her, which is quite interesting, but I was actually more taken with Fergal's horse in second. I thought she ran a storming race.
An unbelievable race, particularly when turned over at 1 to 10 at Ayr.
Yeah.
In a 3-runner race before that. But again, I think that just shows the kind of complexity of dealing with males towards the end of the season. You're not really sure who's had enough and who's not. Air of entitlement well mapped out for the males novices hurdle, and probably was over the hill for this. The big Westerner well mapped out by Henry de Bromhead as well for Albert Bartlett, was probably over the hill for this as well. And Aurora Vega, 2 miles quick ground at Cheltenham wasn't what she wanted. No. 2.5 on heavy ground at Fairyhouse is exactly what she wanted. And although she was beginning to look a little bit exposed, and she's been, for a novice anyway, pretty heavily raced, he did it well in Poulton and picked him and was right to do so. She's a bit untidy too. That gave her a chance. The Fergal's horse, but came back, won pretty comfortably in the end. And she'd have to take her chance at open graded races next season and see where she is. Personally, I don't think she's probably Mare's hurdle quality, even though the trip has it. I think she would need soft ground to get into it. But and Willie Mullins has got a lot of options, and he could probably run 4 or 5 in there, and she could end up being one of them. She'd be more interesting if it was soft ground. I think she'd need it to be competitive, and probably needs a few to underperform. Maureen was quite weak in the market, was a bit disappointing. Karamoja ran okay. The horses that kind of ran at Cheltenham mainly disappointed. The big West had an off day. She's a 3-mile chaser. Mm-hmm. Probably didn't suit either. Caroline Bamboo and Air of Entitlement were well below par. They'll come back again next season in the spring. So it's definitely, I think we'll see a lot at Punchestown. It's definitely end of season form to tread carefully with.
Yeah, and that's if you're having kind of bets at this time of year, I don't throw form out the window all season, but horses can just improve. And I think you saw that with Monday at Fairyhouse. Maxim obviously winning the Grade 2 hurdle, found a 50 winning the Fairyhouse Chase. Hartwood probably hated the ground. I finally managed to get a day in the sun with Blue Lemons and Sir Tudo, 2 very good winners on Monday. But I think the big winner on Monday was no doubt a Welsh trainer, Rebecca Curtis, obviously following up on the National Hunt Chase win with Horticolor.
Yeah, superb performance. Positive front run style and just a really solid hardy jumper. And if you give Rebecca Curtis these kind of horses, she'll do really well with. So I really liked it for National Hunt Chase, and he won. I was a bit worried. The trainer was a bit worried about the ground. Thought it might be just a bit too heavy. It might bog him down slightly, but it didn't. No, he's backed up a really strong Cheltenham effort in a really strong race here as well. It was a very impressive performance. And any second now, retiring the age of 13, second again.
There's nobody that hasn't backed that horse and won something. The amount of runs and the amount of wins he's had.
Money probably, yeah.
Yeah, he's won somebody money at some point.
Yeah, I know he's had runner-up finishes in the Grand National as well, but the year that really got away with him was when he was third, because he was staying on. He was badly hampered, and that's when he was actually well weighted to win it. And probably the year they missed it in COVID was probably going to be his time. It wasn't to be. Kate de Bourbon, he is a classy horse. He just makes too many mistakes at the moment, and that's what kind of did him in for third. He ran quite well, but he just made the odd kind of unfluent mistake. Dunboyne's been a revelation since joining Ian Donoghue to place again. Johnny Who ran fine. Didn't quite get home. Better days ahead. Ran reasonably well for a top weight effort, but again just had to back out of it. Probably the weight just telling there as well. So it was a decent race. It was one that Willie Mullins probably didn't target as much because he was in the British Trainers Title Championship race. Probably flung a bit more at that than he would normally hear. And a lot pulled up. It was a very attritional race, but yeah, the winner did well, and you'd have to say that they probably have to look at something like Aintree with him. And the way he's progressing, they might have to kind of campaign him as a little bit as a Gold Cup horse. They might need to go like bet for your chase, see where you are, because it doesn't matter what you do because of the Grand National. You need a high weight anyway. to get in. So I mean, right now he's probably 25th in the wait list if he did weights for the Grand National right now, because he's been competitive with Willie Mullins horses. They're probably about 10 above you, that are rated like 160 plus. So it's not as if you can just have it's a Grand National horse or that's a Gold Cup horse. You can actually reasonably at the start of the season with these kind of novices campaign them for both and see where you are. And the jumping stiff test of the Haydock, I mean, you'd have to think Betfair chases exactly where he'd want to go at the start of the season next season in open company for him.
We have to obviously, it's probably the right time to mention the jockey, Sean Bowen, obviously winning the first Jockeys Championship. I don't think it'll be his last. Just a masterclass of a season in terms of what he's done. Some of the rides he's put in, just thoroughly deserving champion jockey, and probably the best is yet to come with him.
Yeah, he's just getting better and better all the time. And the main takeaway from a punting perspective is that his record in staying chasers is beyond belief, and staying hurdlers 3 miles and beyond. If you're in a driving finish, you really want him in your corner. He keeps horses jumping for him. They keep finding for him, and in this new modern day where you can't really use the whip to kind of persuade these lazy horses to go, he just uses his sheer core strength to kind of keep them going. And pick them off. It's really impressive, and he's kind of finding new ways to kind of win. So yeah, no, he's definitely hungry for more. I think he's trying to get 180 winners. I think he's trying to get 200 next season. So he does have that kind of thirst to be champion jockey, and the more you win, the more opportunities you're just going to get open to you. He's got a decent enough relationship with Gordon Elliott, I think, over here. Ollie Murphy was 5th in the Trainers' Championship. Probably didn't win the big prizes that he won, although Resplendent Grey won yesterday. But he's plundering all these kind of races that like Paul Nicholls or Dan Skelton would do out with, because there is kind of a lot of depth in that kind of class 3, 4, 5, 6 kind of level, and that's the bread and butter, and that's what wins you championships. But yeah, he's a formidable opponent, and he's definitely that level where, particularly like tracks like Ayr, where if he's there and he's got a booking, you're definitely going to have a second look at it. So yeah, he's made its utmost respect. He's a very down to earth guy. He's a great ambassador for the sport as well, and he's grown into that role. So yeah, he's just improving all bounds at all levels, and everything about him and his character suggests that he's top class.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll just obviously mention Perth quickly. You were there on Wednesday. Was it Wednesday you were there, I think?
Wednesday, yes. Yeah,
Wednesday.
The best day.
Obviously, a busy day in terms of it's quite a kind of big day for the Trainers' Championship. Obviously, we'll touch on the ending later, but fun. Obviously, won. Paul Townend came over. That left, I think, 18,000 Willie Mullins got for that. Dan Skelton instantly responded with Etalon, obviously winning quite impressively, actually, for in that kind of handicap chase. A good day out. Good. It's obviously a good meeting. It always generates. It was a sunny day, if I remember right, as well. It was a pretty good day. Enjoy it.
Yeah, no, I think it's the best place to go racing in the country, by quite some way. Very well priced, easy to get to, and very enjoyable. Even though my punting was absolutely deplorable, but yeah, I mean, fun was worth the kind of entry alone. Really, she looked absolutely magnificent. You're seeing a kind of caliber of horse that you wouldn't normally at the tail end of the season. That's a great thing about Willie Mullins going for the championship when they come over, and Dan Skelton as well. She made heavy weather of it at times. I think the Limerick effort maybe was telling her at the finish, but she had plenty under the bonnet. She looks like a type that will definitely go improving into open graded races as well. Can get 3 miles, can probably go back and trip, has a bit of back class, is young enough to still improve. But yeah, she looked great, and did it quite well. So I think she's probably one to follow next season.
Caswell as well.
Caswell was fantastic. Funny enough, I mean, driving up in the car, I wrote about this week. I left the kind of top end of the market, the feature alone, going through it, and compiled a really good form case for Kiss Will. And then I took one look at him at the paddock and went, well, that's not impressive, and went and ignored it. And he goes up, hacks up, and he won. Pretty classy, He was second. Mullins was second with it with Lachlan, and I think he kind of learned his lesson where he was a bit of a kind of plodder. You need around Perth. You need a kind of change of gear a little bit, and a bit of class and a bit unexposed. And Kiswell was that. Left Turner's form, but well behind, which I think even for Oxo-Rans is going to work out red hot, because that's going to be the best novice hurdle piece of form for the season, definitely going forward. Picked up an offside, made a big mistake, 3 out, came immediately back in the bridle and won a race that should probably be a grade 2, and it's probably been the best race that Perth has ever staged. He didn't look overly big, so I don't know what they're going to do next season. He might be campaigning as a kind of stairs hurdle horse. He could be that good. He's still very young, so I mean, he'd still improve for that. He doesn't look like he's got the scope for a fence at the moment, but you never know what a summer off could do growth-wise. But he didn't look like he had that kind of big chasing frame, a kind of nimble French kind of type that could be a hurdler. And he could be one of their stairs hurdle horses. At long last, they might find one and keep him there. But yeah, he was very, very good performance-wise. So yeah, even though the punting didn't go, it's always good to go racing, because even in defeat you can learn loads, and I think I did. So yeah, and it was very good.
Yeah, brilliant for obviously Perth to stage a big meeting. We'll touch on the Trainers' Championship when we get to Sandown's drum meeting. We'll go to Sandown's flat meeting quickly with three group races on Friday. We'll start with the Gordon Richard Stakes. Alassie obviously winning, beating Ancient Wisdom. Probably a few good horses to take from this. Again, they can all finish in a bit of a bunch. The only disappointing one was probably Arabian Crown. But Alassie's is a very consistent type, 8 years old. Like, he's just continued to kind of find, like, he always wins a race.
He always finds some sort of racing, and it's usually this Group 3 level. You usually kind of take a run to get an 8-year-old fit. So, I mean, for a race like that, maybe it's a bit disappointing an 8-year-old that's exposed at winning. Like Perth actual following day, the ground was softer than it was described. It fooled a lot of punters. This maybe include as well. Ancient Wisdom ran all right from the front. Alassie picked off him from the back. That's how he needs to be ridden. He needs to be ridden cold and late. The one to take out the race was the third in Almacam. I think he's one to kind of really note going forward. Went third towards the finish, didn't quite get clear run at the rear. He looks like one for the future. See, the Fire was only beaten 2 lengths, but travelled into it as if she was the best. Just flattened out towards the end. Don't know if it was ground, but the trip really should have been too much of an excuse. You might go back to a mile with her, but I think she flattened out a little bit too much for my liking. And I think Alassie might go to the Ormond at Chester if that's not too quick a turnaround or something like that. It's these kind of races that'll do him in a stiff mile. He is quite versatile trip-wise as well. He could do it stiff mile and ground. Stiff mile, 10 furlongs, even a mile and a half, even though that kind of stretches him. But yeah, I mean, the Haggis team will do well to kind of place him, but it's these kind of races that he's going to thrive in, really, rather than anything kind of major serious and all the big summer festivals, I would think.
Let's move into the Bet365 mile, obviously won by Dancing Gemini, 5-1 now for the Lockins. What do you think of this? I think it was a good performance. Like, in terms of the kind of Lockins, like, we'll look at it kind of nearer the time, but I think he's the one to beat in that.
I mean, it depends. I mean, Ian O'Brien runs. If he comes over with like a Lope Fernandez or something like that, then possibly not. It's a market I've not looked at. I think people know that the miles division isn't too strong, and
Salian seems to be heading the market for it.
Yeah, I mean, I would rather dance to Gemini probably, but I mean, it depends whether they take his chance after 2 quick runs. But he's doing what Sharon did last season in terms of just going through the grades and getting to the top level. He had good 3-year-old form. He was second in the French Guineas, for instance. French Derby, ranked quite well in these races. there was enough cutting the ground for him to go forward here. And this probably didn't pan out as well as it did the last day, where he won quite well at Doncaster on a listed prize. This was a bit tougher, and he did it quite well. The one I'm interested in for the Lockingdale, if they went there, was the second.
Yeah.
Tim Farrow, he was given conceding race fitness and had a £5 penalty conceding weight to all after winning the Stun Chariot. Needed the run, got relatively close, just flattened out. And I think it was probably one to take it. Hatton was a bit disappointing, but drifted in the market as if he barely did it as well. He'll probably have one more run before targeting something like the Queen Anne, I'd imagine. And lead artist is exactly the same. You know, I don't think he liked cutting the ground. That's what the representative for the owner said. So he could be a different proposition. I think the best thing to be is be very kind of forgiving at the end of the season, at the start of the season before, because a lot of your top notchers really won't have this as kind of anywhere near the target, and it's just a starting point for them. So, I mean, I wouldn't throw anything out, and I wouldn't really kind of dismiss anything either. So yeah, it's that time of the season, really.
Would you think a Swagman, obviously winning the Classic Trial, beating one Lord who was well fancied, seems to be kind of Irish classics, seems to be getting routed 2000 in Derby, Irish Derby has entries for both. Would you kind of think anything to take for this race?
I thought this was a poor trial, to be honest. I think there's going to be a lot of better ones in line. Swagman, it franks some juvenile form from hot as hell for Jesse Harrington. Doesn't have a Derby entry. You'd have to think the Aina Browns get at least 6 better than these. And him winning it, he'd be a bit disappointing. Traditionally, it's not been a strong trial, but recent years it has. Adiyar second, won it in 2021. Westover won this in 2022 for runner-up the Derby, and he surgically won Group 1s. Windlord was a bit disappointing. He hung badly there, and you know that's just not going to get any better at Epsom, is it? Hanging, you know, if a horse hangs around Sandown, it's going to hang around Epsom, isn't it? So I don't think that would be for me. Domestic's run okay. I don't think it'll be classic horse. I think this Swagman's probably kind of the Royal Ascot equivalent of a Derby horse.
Hot as hell. Like again, like I can see like 33 for the Guineas, 40s for the Derby. I don't know what the kind of plan is with them, but Delacroix came out in front to form as a Swagman. You'd have to think if they do declare Derby, is a big price at that at 33s.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, he's won a subsequent Group 1. It's probably been forgotten about. Maybe they're just thinking Jesse Harrington might keep him at home, kind of thing, as if it might not run. But you just see how he really kind of develops as well. I mean, the Derby horses at this time, they can come from kind of all sorts of places, really. And he's an option. The big eye catcher of that meeting, though, was the winner of the Esher Cup in fifth column, because that horse has got Britannia at Royal Ascot written absolutely all over him for the Gosens. He just looks like a kind of strong, mild galloping type. Weighted 86, he'd be bumped up. He'd be bumped up probably 6 or 7 for that 93. Only get in. He's racking up a good sequence. He's better on that. Showed that he can handle cutting ground. He only disappointed at Ascot as a 2-year-old, 6 and 9 on pretty bad ground. So I don't think he'd want it too deteriorating. But the way he's kind of travelled through it, and he was one of only 2 horses that was that entered in the last year's Dewhurst of the Gosden stable, and the other was Field of Gold, who's favourite for the Guineas. So they obviously thought a great deal of him as a 2-year-old. He didn't quite cut it, but he's making up for lost time now that he's gelded. He's been 2 for 2, and the Britannia, if drawn correctly, freshened up, and the trainers already mentioned that he'd be a big player, because it's a trainer. It's a race at Royal Ascot the trainer likes. Okay, you need to be in the right side of the draw there normally, but if he is, it's going to be pretty tough to beat. And whenever the market opens for the Britannia at Royal Ascot, I would be pretty quick to try and get double figures on him if you could.
Just obviously on Saturday, we did during the Sandown meeting, we did see Kyprios make his running return and is now evens to win his third Ascot Gold Cup. Callum, I thought that it was 1-9. He would have beaten what was in front of him, but he's a horse that I think is so hard to be against because, like, there was even a wee point in the race where thinking, is he going to need the run here? And then he just finds that wee bit of turbo that just gets him going. I'd imagine he'll have another run before Ascot, but he looks to be in working order.
Yeah, that was a decent enough reappearance. You know, there was they went really slow, so it took him quite some time to pick up. Probably the only way that 90 high 90 horses can really get close, and they're really slowing it down to that. And he'd obviously badly need it the first time, and he did. You know, wins by 2 lengths. Like all great sensible steers, he can only just do enough that they need to do, and he'll come on a bundle for that. And yeah, I mean, it's going to be. It's going to be Savile Beg at Leopardstown and then on to the Gold Cup, and we'll see what they might have an arc tilt, or they might go for the stairs race at Longchamp, maybe take an Irish Ledger in between or something like that. The season kind of maps out itself for him. And it was a satisfactory start. You know, on face value, he might have looked as if he made a bit heavy weather of it, but he's just needed the run fitness wise.
Do you think Evans is a good bet on him? Like at this point, like do you think anything can beat him?
I don't really see a lot that will beat him. I mean, there's a good. So Ascot, the Sagaro Stakes at Ascot, that's just pretty much. I mean, I think Coltrane probably going to win that for the third straight time. So, and Jan Bruegel really blotted his copy, but looked a bit ungainly under pressure. The Ledger winner. So, I don't really see anything substantial that's going to come out and challenge him. And I think it's pretty similar case to this time last year. Whereas if he gets in reasonable working order, he's going to take a lot of beating. Now, even money this far out in the Gold Cup, probably not. But I'm happy enough to kind of wait and see if you get 46 in the day or something like that. Then I'd be polite enough to row in because he normally doesn't win by miles. But he's a clear one to beat, and I don't think there looks to be a lot of dangers. It was quite a good card at Navan as well. I mean, Charles Darwin won the maiden in very impressive fashion, and he looks like a Coventry type.
Yeah, he does.
Wayne O'Brien, the race that they won 2 years ago with River Tiber, could go there. He didn't rule out the Norfolk because he's got a lot of pace, going back down and trip. I still assume that it would be probably the Coventry. And Whistle Jacket won.
Well, Whistle Jacket was really good. I know he had to stay on, but I think probably that did enough. And what do you think with him? What do you think the long-term plan is with him? Because he was a horse last season I really liked, and maybe just didn't hit the heights. But he's definitely got speed and a wee bit of stamina as well at 5.
Yeah, I mean, it's Commonwealth Cup, I think, is the plan, isn't it, for him and the second. I thought the second was probably the one to kind of take out of it a little bit. I think the soft ground probably played against Ides March in comparison to Whistle Jacket. But he was kind of Group 1 penalty. He was keen early doors, plenty to do, did well and got it. I think Whistle Jacket won that mainly because of the ground. Ides March could turn that around in better ground.
Okay.
Both of them are decent each way chances in the Commonwealth Cup. So yeah, it was a pretty impressive race, and I think it'll be a good one going forward. And it's good to see Whistle Jacket train on from 2 to 3 because he was quite busy at 2. He did it quite well, and I think we might take Longway that beat Catalina del Capro as well. That looked like a good race. That Group 3, a couple of well fancied horses disappointed in behind. Mostly speaking, ecstatic. Fiona O'Brien's and Terima of Dermot Wells. Ground maybe against the favourite.
Del Caprio blew the start.
I think she was just kind of stall one around Navan is pretty tricky to deal with, and you know the Joseph O'Brien horses is dictated from a clever opportunistic kind of front running ride, really. And I think you see a lot of races that just pan out that way now. I mean, even in the jumps, Blue King Daru. I mean, if you give somebody a freebie at the front, you know they're going to be incredibly hard to pass these days, and that's what happened there. The winner, I think, will go pretty poorly by the sounds of it. That seems to be the target. Probably not an Oaks horse. The second, I think, probably ridden to stay the trip as well, because the way she won her maiden over a mile, there was kind of pretty impressive turn of foot there, and they were kind of wondering, all right, where does your kind of future lie at the top level? Is it going to be a mile and a half, or is it going to be a mile and a quarter? And I think they kind of got the answer when she was kind of maybe just trapped in a pocket against the rail. Did come out, made some ground. I think they got a mile and a half, and I think she's probably the one to take out of it for the Irish Oaks. Ecstatic could leave it behind. She was hampered in trying to challenge, but she wants better ground than that. And Tarima probably does as well, even though she was a major disappointment, but she was too keen again and not learning in the job and was trapped out wide. So you could probably forgive her, but in terms of maybe next time out, again, she'd probably need it, and maybe she's a bit of a slow learner, and maybe she can maybe get to the top level towards the end of the season.
Just speaking to Joseph O'Brien, actually, just obviously our local track is Ayr for anybody that doesn't know, and there was an old SM Media favourite running at Ayr tomorrow by the name of Flying Scotsman. Yeah, now a rating of 58.
Yes, and he's still in GP cars actually.
Yeah.
Ben has, yeah. It's the Ayr card. I mean, it's the first flat card back, but it's like it's really kind of 0 to 60, 0 to 70, 0 to 75 stuff. So yeah, I mean, he could actually win that. Crowd might be a bit fast for him, but yeah, it's definitely not a daunting race that he could win. He's got back classes. Sometimes a young kind of, I don't know, look through the car, quite a lot of kind of just because of like 4 or 5 year old tend to win these races. So yeah, it's not going to be high in quality, but I mean, there's actually good runners. I mean, five of the 7 races I've got 10 runners or more, which is always a kind of good thing for a betting medium. People inclined to go, but yeah, it's Flying Scotsman. It'll be good to see him. I'll definitely go along in the paddock and have a look at him. And he's definitely not beyond actually winning that. So yeah, and they also race again Thursday. So I mean, you've got Newmarket's got a solid undercard before the Guineas as well. So it's that time of the year where you're really mixing between both codes, and you've got to be as selective as possible.
Yeah, some good cards as well. Obviously, Friday we've got Newmarket, Goodwood, and Cheltenham's on as well. Obviously, evening meeting for Hunter's Chase Day. And I think is it the Royal? Is it military? Is that meeting I'm thinking of? Or is that later on?
It's all the Hunter's Chase ones.
Hunter's Chase is a military meeting. Is it middle of May? I think. Have I made that up?
It might well be that. I know there's one
sure
entry
that's yeah. But yeah, we'll be all over that. Obviously, Punchestown as well. The Trainers' Championship was decided. Willie Mullins obviously won it, beating Dan Skelton. I think what was Dan Skelton's prize pot was something like 3,465,000 or something like that. It might be more than that. Like
the exact figure.
Unbelievable figure to get lost to lose. Yeah. But again, we're just living in this kind of dominant winning machine era of Willie Mullins, and you saw as well, like, I don't think he was really thinking about it until after the Grand National. And then you saw just he puts his kind of mind to it, brings a team over to every meeting, wins at Pumpton with Absurd, and just comes over. Gaelic Warrior and Ailey de Thomas will start obviously looking at the kind of big races as well. Gaelic Warrior, I thought this was a really good performance again. Looked like a wee bit during the race he was going to throw it in, but again just kind of over. Probably the second and fourth in that as well was good for the prize pot, but again just shows that he knows what he's doing with these horses.
Yeah, Dan Skelton was sitting there kind of suffering for a long time really, and you've got the last kind of big prize in Sandown, and he's just going to hoover it up. And this is a Grade 1 horse and a Grade 2 race. You know, he really should have been shorter than 5 to 6. I mean, if it wasn't Gaelic Warrior, if it wasn't kind of his unconvincing back profile, then I think he would have been a lot shorter here because he was miles better than these. And I think they found the key to riding him, you know, another kind of stalking ride, like he did at Aintree. You know, let's humour along and chibby him into it, and then ask him for a good finishing effort. And that's exactly what they did.
King George?
He's got to be, isn't it? I mean, he's now 7 going 8. You know, he hates Leopardstown. That seems to knock him back a little bit. Why on earth you'd go there ever again with him? You just wouldn't know. So, yeah, it's John Durkin, King George, then on to whatever trip you want in Cheltenham, you know, the Ryanair or the Gold Cup. I think it's that obvious and that simple. And they've already earmarked King George And I'd imagine have to take it in because he's also shown some versatility on the ground. You know, he can get 3 miles. He could probably get the Gold Cup trip on good ground. And if it's soft background, then he could probably run in a Ryanair quite comfortably. So at the start of the season, you were kind of thinking, has he kind of lost his ways? He found his ceiling a little bit. He's been on the go since a juvenile. And maybe he's kind of turned a little bit sour. But again, you know, trainer and rider have definitely found the key to him. They've got him back to a good kind of fit level as well because he had issues with him at the start of the season.
I think the thing with the Arkle was when he won the Arkle, people were saying, "Oh, he's definitely a 2 miles champion chase horse." He was the best horse by far in that Arkle. It was just a case of was that going to suit? We went off 5-2 in the Arkle, right? And you would think because of the kind of issues he's had, kind of going right-handed at times, like going left-handed at times, doesn't suit him. But the talent there, he was very good in that Arkle, but I don't think he was ever an out and out 2 miler. I think he benefited from a lot of things going his way that day. And I think now we're seeing that he is probably a better kind of mid to long range trip.
Yeah, he's better. I mean, the older you get, the more you kind of tend to slow down, the more you kind of want a trip. And you know, he already had that in his profile. You know, if you go like the juvenile races that he was going, good 2 mile triumph kind of Boodles type tend to go up and trip to 2.5-3 miles anyway.
Yeah.
So yeah, he was good and versatile. It wasn't a great arc. I think everyone was kind of scratching around trying to back something for it, and this horse just had way too much class, and there was a wave of support from on the day that suggested that trainers got him spot on for this, and he'll be fine. And you know, and if he behaves, he'll win comfortably. But he was long at a couple where he reached for a few and chanced it a little bit. But yeah, he was. There wasn't really any moment of real concern with back, particularly when market rival picked Door. He couldn't really go the early gallop, couldn't lead, was forced out wide, made a mistake, and it was curtains for him. So yeah, he won that relatively well, and he kind of comes alive a little bit in the spring as well. So yeah, and then the fact that he can go 2.5 and 3 miles means that there's plenty of options with him.
Select Hurdle, Blue King Daru won that for Paul Nicholls. We both had Kitzbühel, where I don't think it was the best ride from Paul Townend, but again, there's probably excuses to make. I think this is going to be a weird horse to follow, whether he's good enough to be like maybe a stairs hurdle, maybe goes novice chasing. But I think Paul Nicholls, I think it was 99 miles. I don't think he got 100, but I think it was just one of those seasons where I think the best that his horses that he thought would be the kind of top of the cream of the crop just didn't deliver, and that's the reason he was kind of way off the pace trainers wise.
Yeah, I mean, that just doesn't quite have the depth quality this, but he said he's slowly rebuilding it, and he is, because horses like this didn't quite happen for him. This is kind of his level. He had excuses. He was running bad ground, for instance. He ran at a time with the yard of a badly out of form as well. And he's come back and he's won this, and they've mapped him out for a long way to do it, and he's just clung on from the front, and Harry Cobham's ridden him by sleep from the front. Mm-hmm. And he's just about got home. And yeah, I mean, he's going to go chasing next season. And he's probably the kind of horse that might take up the mantle from Pic D'Orhy and win Silviniaco Conti chases and Ascot chases and come back to Sandown at the end of the season and stuff like that. I think that's what he is. I don't think you really see him as a main player at the Cheltenhams and even Aintree of the world. And that's the kind of level of horse that Paul Nicholls has got mainly at the moment. There's signs that it's changing a little bit. Calf to Belly looks good. Could be a top notcher. Caldwell Potter is getting there. He just need a bit of time, and he's definitely coming along to be top notcher. So he will have a couple more, I think, better ones next season. And that's what he's saying at the end. He's quite bullish. So I think maybe they've had a week in a transitional period, and they're getting there again. So I think he's coming back. The second, the Gary Moore too, they also won the first 2 races of the day.
Yeah, the good day. Yeah.
So they probably target this from a long way as well. He was a bit unlucky, not as unlucky as Kitzbühel, who I did think about Blue King Daru, and then Paul Nicholls yard at the start just wasn't happening for me, so I had to swear it. 10 to 1 over 9 to 4, and I really should have went with Blue Kangaroo, really, in hindsight, because I knew he was going to run his race, just whether he was going to be good enough. But yeah, down trip, he set a lot of weight better for the Hood. The Hood actually had the desired effect, and Willie Mullins doesn't actually have a great strike rate with the Hood, but it worked in this instance. It was kind of like all the effort there with no reward. They went slow, the slow gallop didn't really suit him. He was a bit unfortunate when he kind of lost his little position at the second last. He was waiting for a run several times, couldn't get it. Even in the run-in where he looked like he might get there, he had to switch to the inside, and he's only been beaten by half a length, closing at the line. It is interesting what they do with him. He's rated 153. Do you try and run in a kind of competitive summer hurdle? Like, I don't know if like a Galway hurdle would suit him or something like that, just to get more experience in him, to maybe parachute him into top-class graded company, because he's certainly capable. I do really like him. But I just think combination of maybe a below par ride and a lack of experience kind of did him there, but he improved from Aintree a lot, mainly in his temperament, really, than anything else. And there's definitely races to be won with him down the line. He was definitely one to take out the race. Lucky Place. I really don't understand the clamour of this horse in graded company. If there's anything remotely decent in there, he's not going to win.
No.
He won a couple of Grade 2s at the start of the season. Punted into single figures for Stayers Hurdle, didn't stay. And, he was behaving awkwardly beforehand in the paddock. Made some ground, and again, didn't finish his race out. And I think a lot of Nicky Henderson's, as we might touch on in the next, are running as if they've had enough for the season.
Well, John Bond obviously was beaten in the celebration chase. You obviously tweeted this right after a tremendous training performance from Willie Mullins to get Ellie de Thomas back after, I think near enough a year off. I think the last run was actually at Punchestown where he beat Gaelic Warrior. Has won a lot of races, opens up that 2 mile division a wee bit. I think we were thinking it might not be the best division going into next season. First of all, kind of two questions. First of all, on the winner, is he good enough to be a champion chase player? And was it just a case that John Bond maybe just a race too many this year?
Bit of both. Yeah, I think it's definitely good enough. And he's kind of threatened it. Punchestown, really good performance. The issue I would have is that he's two disappointing runs, quite clearly, in his life. I've been at Cheltenham, and I've been at the festival. So whether he really likes the place, I am not. I'm not too sure. Yeah, and they probably overdid it up front, and he's kind of just cruised into it from the back and picked them off up the hill. It's a stiff finish at Sandown that might exaggerate his superiority a little bit, but it was a very smooth taking performance, and he's definitely just a bit of young blood, definitely ready to kind of shake up that top of the market. I can see him being 5 to 1 right now. I don't think he could take that, because he's had a year off. And it was a leg problem, and you just can't. He could easily get another kind of. He's probably more vulnerable to kind of a similar setback than that as well. So I've been mindful of him from a long-term anti-post proposition, but when he turns up in these races, he's got to take a lot of respect. And again, a wonderful training performance to get him that fit and ready to put in a performance like that and take out a Grade 1 like that in style is something that only Willie Mullins can really do at this moment in time. So yeah, the way he strengthened and quickened the way up the running was very impressive from John Bond, who might have been flat, but it was still a taking way to do it. And he's absolutely smashed the horse that was odds-on favourite for the champion chase, and subsequently backed up at Aintree. So yeah, he's definitely one to take note of, but you just have to be wary about what he did have. He was off for a year. He missed Cheltenham last year in the last two runs at Cheltenham.
I thought John Bond was jumping quite left. I know he does it. I know he's capable of doing it, but I thought it was a bit more violent than what we've seen in recent years. I don't think that changed the result, but I just thought at times he was jumping a bit left.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of just one of these things in the morning where you kind of go, he's been backed into 1 to 2 now. I know the opposition here isn't great in the attacks with risks, but he's definitely worth a lay at the 74 mark for you, having the field run against you. And he had a really hard race at Cheltenham where he tried to he admirably get back into it second. And you saw that towards the end of Aintree where he kind of held on quite grimly. the trip probably worked wonders for him, and you were kind of thinking he'd be vulnerable here, even though it's his favourite haunting ground, and he does quite well here. But and it looked a kind of weakish Grade 1, and he would have won without Eleti Tom there quite handsomely. But he did look vulnerable, fitness wise and trip wise as well. And he is looking like he's at the Shishkin stage of his career when he's filler. And the connections are mooting. That connections are even mooting possibly King George if they're going to start on 2.5 next season.
Yeah.
And he might be a Ryanair type. He'd be 9 going 10, so it's never really to do that. But he still jumped from the front. He still travelled with enough zest. He did jump markedly left and conceding ground is not quite a good idea, but he can do that. Maybe that's kind of a new jockey not really knowing him and giving him a good spin. I don't know, but yeah, I just think as Nicky Henderson says, I think the edge has been taken off him after, and he had a long season before then. He's ran kind of, he's still won like 3 or 4 graded races anyway, so he's ran 5-6 times from November. So I just think he's just been caught out by a kind of horse that's coming here fresh and that was fit enough to do himself justice. And he still beat. I kind of thought Edelstein would run mighty, and he did till 2 out, where he just get left behind. And the same can happen to anyone. I mean, they're 11 now; they're probably done at this level. So yeah, I mean, LIT Tom. It would be interesting to see, because it was good to go to Punchestown, was it? He came here instead because of the trainer's title. But I mean, that could have been a great race with LIT Tom. Fact to File and Marine National could have been all at Punchestown. It's still going to be a good duel anyway, but they are definitely the 3 to take forward going into the champion chase market at the moment.
Yeah, and I think that was the race that clinched it for Willie Mullins. But if he did need any more money, I think Dan Skelton, I think there was something going about if Dan Skelton won, Dan Skelton would have still been in it going into the last race if Willie didn't have any of the first 5. Resplendent Grey won it for Ollie Murphy, the Bet365 Gold Cup, but Willie Mullins did the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th, which got him over the line. How Lombron didn't win this race, I know it was a good ride for Sean Bowen, but Lombron, like, you could have put your arm around him if he didn't win that, because that was unbelievable how he managed to recover, how Rachel Blackmore managed to recover and nearly got up.
Yeah, losing an iron 5 out, not ideal, and then having to jump 4 out without finding that iron again is a pretty scary out. But I mean, he had his chance. He's 2 lengths clear at the last, and then didn't see it out. So yeah, but I mean, Resplendent Grey again. It's a champion, strength in the saddle, winning the day. They put the cheek pieces on, which allowed him to travel kindly, and Resplendent Grey, and that made the difference. And again, that national chase form is working out brilliantly.
Really good, yeah.
So in Cheltenham, I think will probably feel very vindicated that they turned it into the race that it is, a handicap, because there's horses winning the Irish National and things like that, coming out winning left, right, and centre, the Scottish National, and now this. So a really good race to take going forward, and he's another that will probably have to go up in grade now. Grand National probably suit him with the cheek pieces on, because he did show that he did have the required kind of cruising speed to stay in it. High Class Hero ran well, got the Triple K, maybe trapped a little bit in the inner that kind of put him off a couple of his jumps. It didn't help. There'll be bigger days for Lombron. He looks like a horse that could probably go again in the summer.
Mm-hmm.
Has a bit of speed. Maybe something, I don't know if there's something like that trip really for him over the summer. That's a kind of issue. They might try and find something with him. The Spanish Harlem ran quite well from the front after being carried out in the Scottish National. And that Grangeclear Rest won mighty, given he's ran 3 weeks from Grand National, lumbering a big weight.
Lombron maybe for like a Munster National or something. I know it's like 3 miles, something like that.
Something like that. I mean, he's one that you'd try and find maybe something for over the summer, because he's very he's very unexposed. I don't know if we can really he's get some decent soft ground form. Maybe good chance of that maybe over at France or something. There'll be a few options for him. I'm sure Willie Mullins will find something. Manila Kakuna, his effort, flat. He was badly hampered, unfortunately, by the fatal fall of Dancing City. There'll be other days in him. I think his national effort was kind of left a little a little mark in him, but and the whole Jolly Smokes chance was ruined like most when you're now running £15 out the handicap.
Yeah.
It kind of skewers the race individually, but he had 10 horses, Willie Mullins, and all 10 of them were from different owners. And that is the really key to sustaining success, is that you can have all the runners that you want and things like that, but you need willing owners to go at these places and try it. And every single owner seemed happy to go over his side and do what he wants, and to have that kind of level of support is quite remarkable and quite taking. So yeah, but there was a sad postscript. The Dancing City incident was quite horrible.
Yeah, no, it was. It was bad. Again, like I'm not like putting a dampener on it or anything like that, but I was really surprised that's what they've done with him.
I thought he'd go Irish National. I thought he
Yeah,
needed softer grounds as well, and he probably didn't need to run
no.
in a race like that in the back of two foals either.
Yeah, I know it was a strange decision. But obviously, congratulations to Willie Mullins, as you say. One like the owners as well, the spread of owners that he has, looking at the kind of entries for the bumpers and things like that as well for Punchestown. You know, obviously we see a lot of promising horses come out of them. There's a lovely spread of owners coming out as well. And owners you've maybe never heard of or maybe not had a kind of good horse. So it shows as well that
Exactly.
people are taking their chance on like
Yeah,
we
and
we
then the
want a
owner.
horse with Willie Mullins. I thought it was interesting as well. The Nick Rocket, the owner that sadly passed away. That was the reason she wanted a horse, was to have a good horse with Willie. And look
Yeah,
how it's paid off. Like they're all getting them.
and that's the best, and they don't mind the fees, and that, and they want the horses with him. Even for like just because he's the best trainer, but it's testament to his character and personality as well. He's somehow finding time to spin all these plates and talk to all these people. I mean, the owner of Nick Rocket was there at Sandown as well, even though he didn't have a runner. That's the level of accommodation that you're getting and access around Closutton, and the race planning as well. They won the last with John Palm.
Yeah,
Sure on a race in there. I mean, at Ayr, he didn't stay the 3 miles, come back and trip for a kind of wee select one at Sandown, win that. And it's for a stable that's got so many top class horses, how they map out their B team and C team and D team to beat everyone else's kind of better horses as well. It's quite something. So there's everything in place to really, really continue the domination if he wants to. I mean, there's not many more peaks to climb. They can only kind of just keep doing the ones that they're doing and set a standard. But the support team there, the stable staff there, and he's willing to keep growing and growing and growing, and that's unbelievable, really. And all the owners, they just, everybody speaks highly of him, and when jump racing's kind of in a downer and it's there to be shot at by antis, having a kind of ambassador with such class as he does and a champion like he does is really priceless for the sport in that way. And we've got to credit Dan Skelton as well for keep going, because this year he actually backed a good 5 or 6 up to really good effect to kind of maybe try and hold off Elite Surge, and he met the target that he thought he'd maybe need, and it still wasn't enough. And he said he enjoyed it more this season than he did last season. So even he's up for the fight now, and his owners will be up for the fight now as well.
and
And
he
say,
will
okay,
get he will get his day in the sun, won't he? Like he will win a trainers' championship.
there'll be 1 year where Willie Mullins won't win the Grand National, and that'll be it.
Yeah,
Because of the prize money thing. He's got to be in the hunt by winning the Grand National to have a go at it. And even Willie Mullins said it was a lot tougher this year than it was last year. And it won't always happen. They won't always have their eyes set on it towards the end of the season, because they've still got Punchestown to deal with this week. I mean, I'm not sure about you, but I mean, I barely had a look at Punchestown because of
I've
what's
not.
going on.
Yeah,
And that again, that's another thing where Willie Mullins he really trusts his staff, like David Casey. His son Patrick Mullins always steps up. Race planners, owners, stable staff. I'm sure Ruby Walsh's input as well. Paul Townend's massive input as well. Danny Mullins. All these voices feel like they're being heard by him as well, because he is one of these guys that will listen to people, and you see that with the vast array of owners that he's got. It's a strength and depth and the breadth of the operation really that is remarkable, and I think they took a lot of benefit by having a little slower Christmas than usual as well. That's kept a lot more of them going
Yeah.
right to the end. I think that's probably the one notable tweak that he's made, is that it's really kind of the 1 or 2 weeks before the Dublin Racing Festival where things really now genuinely take off, because that's where all the big prizes are really now.
Yeah, obviously a brilliant story with Willie Mullins winning the Trainers' Championship. A story that caught a bit of mainstream publicity from the racing world, and not the most positive one was obviously the story about Dylan Phelan. Obviously, for people who don't know
Yeah.
about that, stable lad for Declan Queally had put on a €30 each way double, I think over a year ago. 80 to 1 and 125 to 1 on Diamond Nora and Rocky's Diamond. Both horses won at. He put this bet in a shop in Limerick in the morning of the races, and Ladbrokes had obviously dug their heels in for quite a while, said that they weren't going to pay out. I think it was something like €319,000 he was entitled to. The there was two kind of big things. This obviously the Ladbrokes minimum payout was €100,000, and the other thing was the bookmaker would not settle the bet on the basis that the two horses they ran in were under investigation by the IHRB. It had obviously made headlines. Ladbrokes have decided to settle, so Dylan has managed to get 100,000. What do you make of this? There's a lot of plates you can spin with this, but the big thing I have with it before letting you go, I don't understand why, and I've seen this actually like many times. I think we've both maybe been in this position where kind of bookmakers are not paying out and kind of making things very difficult for you to punt. But why are they saying that the bet was worth 319,440 if they can't pay out any more than 100 grand? Like
Well,
things
that's a
like that.
max payout thing, you know. I mean, if you did that online and did like a big massive ACA, you'd normally get a max payout limit of 250,000.
Yeah,
So it would tell you on the phone and online slip. Well, in the shop, you know, it's kind of, you have to know your own limit. I think the Irish limit's less. So that's always been in place, particularly on sports betting. There's always a kind of shop limit there, so you should have been aware. And it was an each way double, so I mean, he's probably known that he would get the max payout of 100, because it would probably pay roughly about 100 for them both to just place.
I would have thought so. Yeah,
So that's the kind of angle there. So I don't think he's going in blind expecting all the money, and I think he knows where the kind of maximum limit is, because I think it's mainly in each way double like that. It's normally kind of place both of them to place really.
the funny
Um,
thing about this as well is Rocky's Diamonds ended up going on to win graded races.
well, it's the funny thing is, I mean, that's why it was held back because of the inquiry, because it's
Yeah,
obviously some jiggery poke that's improved by like both of them will improve for like 60 lengths and improved at all recognition, and they were that price for a reason.
yeah,
It's a stable lad, you know, he obviously knows something, but I mean, if at the end of the day, you know, if you take a bet,
pay out.
that's a contract.
Yeah.
You have to pay out and pay out to the limit, then so be it. They obviously want out of it by taking a look at it, and you feel a bit bitter about it by being stung. But you know, if it went through the traders, you know, I mean, if you do it at the shop, you know, you normally phone a bet like that and be like, "This guy wants a €30 each way double on this monstrous price. It'll pay out 300 grand. I better phone this in to see if the traders are happy if they know something." That's how it works. And normally the decline, you'll say, well, you can have 10 or you can have 5 each way. Like a few other firms did with that double or the outside of individual horses. But I mean, they're only going to take it for small money to lose like maybe a few thousand. But I mean, the max payout, the new modern tills, they really should flag that up.
Mm-hmm.
Here's the bet, you can have that on, but by the way, the max limit's 100,000 euros. I suspect, though, he's somebody that probably knew that and was doing that anyway to get the max payout in the place. Because he probably knows that they're going to run really well, but I don't think they're guaranteed to win. But you think they'd probably hit the frame. So I do think it was mainly a bet to get the kind of 100 grand as place money, and 300 grand as a win if he was going to get that. But I mean, I do think it was kind of stretching the limit to get the place part of the bet up rather than kind of actually winning. He's by default he's actually He's actually gone and hit the jackpot.
And the big thing as well, I don't know when the last time you've had. I probably never had a bet that big in a shop like for that amount of payout. But like the problem as well is that you look around a lot of betting shops, particularly where we are, like a lot of them are shutting down. Like a lot of them aren't making any money. So if you go into a betting shop and you're paying out 300 grand, it's probably closing that shop down. So that probably, I think that was one of the reasons I'd heard was a big thing is why they weren't paying out straight away through the shop. But you know as well as I do, like for like I remember winning maybe 2 or 3 thousand. I remember I had to go back the next day to get the money. You couldn't get it that day. Like that again,
Yeah,
it's just like
and how many people use cash anymore? It's probably
exactly, yeah, like
only people that do that. And over here, there's betting restrictions, and if you go to a race meeting and you bet on track with your card, they pay you out in cash. So
yeah,
your bank is thinking that you're actually losing money.
yes.
They don't actually see that, even if you are returning, they don't actually see the return. So that just piles more red flags on it.
Hmm.
And if you've got certain accounts and certain restrictions, then that's just going to shut you down. So, I mean, you're trapped kind of either way the game. In this case, they've waited for the IHRB to come out. I mean, what Ladbrokes should, they're a big firm. You come out, it's a PR, just pay 100 grand straight away.
They should be all over this. They should be living like they should be having them in like ITV and things like that. But this bit, like,
Well, I mean, they shouldn't have got to that stage. The power of social media has kind of lifted it, and they've been kind of shamed into paying it. They could have still refused if they wanted to, but I mean, he's obviously had that. I mean, I wouldn't want to spend a year of my life having like 100 or 300 grand that I should be getting, or feel that I should be getting over my head, and going as if my daily business as if it's all normal. But they're a big firm. They could have went to the IHRB and said, "Look, we've got this outstanding bet here. We're under pressure to pay out. What's happening with the investigation, and
yeah,
why is it taking a whole year?"
correct.
That is one good way to attack it, and maybe constantly have better communication with the customer and say, "We have to know what's happening with this investigation if it's going to be thrown out, and then you won't get paid." And we've been on, and to give them maybe some sort of peace of mind, is it? We've been on the IHRB's case to actually get on with this. Because I mean, you see it. I mean, like Stewart's inquiries, how mayhem can cause there, and like the whip rule in Cesaro, which flipped the result, and you actually don't get paid for actually being the right horse, even though that the result a week later is going to be flipped.
Mm-hmm.
So it's when something awry and something slightly off that happens like that. I mean, chaos can ensue, and what should be paid out and what not be, because sometimes you expect kind of instant payment nowadays with these. I mean, even the Grand National. I mean, if you bet in the Grand National, you might have to wait days.
Yeah, you kind of get in. Yeah,
In the old days, you couldn't get in the shop, or they ran out of money by then. You'd be asked to come back later on, or even in the start of the online apps, you're kind of wait. You might get paid at like 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night or something by the end of the day. It took so long for them to process. You would have thought that technology and sense would have adapted enough
mm-hmm.
to kind of sort that out much sooner than it did. It didn't need to drag on. Ladbrokes could have just suck it up and say, let's slip the net. We'll have to pay out in that. We've dropped the ball in that. We should have either rejected it or just paid out straight away. And there's only so long he can wait, and he's clearly been so frustrated and had enough that he's felt he's had to kind of go on social media and a platform to kind of get this out. And just before Punchestown, where Ladbrokes advertise it all, it would have been an even bigger PR disaster. It already is. It's a firm I don't bet with anyway.
Nah.
But that kind of softens the blow a little bit, at least for them. That they do pay out, and that's the whole point of the whole game. That's how everyone starts. It's a 1 in a million thing that you're going to get life-changing money. That's why everybody's in it, to try and make something tangible. My betting edge is just diminishing all the time, and it looks very unlikely that it'll ever play for big money again. It will take something as ridiculous as that to land something like some sort of ridiculous kind of throwaway multi a little bit. But that's the whole point, trying to do it. And even there was a case where like some woman in Birmingham won $1 million in a Paddy Power wheel game, and that took years to resolve. And she took a screenshot of it to actually get paid out. So people are just going to. There might be a day where people stop using these kind of big corporations, go to independent bookmakers instead, or kind of smaller ones instead, because it's just a much more reliable contract. If you're going to stop the dream big, and if you're going to lose too much and you're restricted that way, then you're just going to have a game that's just everyone's just peddling about, trading war, and that really doesn't suit anybody.
Moving into Punchestown, obviously we've got declarations for day one. We'll cover the 3 big races. There will be a column every day of the Punchestown Festival, and Callum will obviously have selections as well. I've got entries here for the first Grade 1, the Champion Novices Hurdle. We see the return of Kopek de Board. He has been declared here, as has Salvador Mundy, who won the Grade 1 at Aintree. Only £3 between them now in official ratings. I wouldn't have thought that after Cheltenham, but I'd still imagine Townend will go with Kopek de Board. This is actually going to be quite interesting to see how much Salvatore Mundy how close he can get to him based on what we saw at Cheltenham. Because at Cheltenham, I thought Kopek de Board was just miles ahead of Salvatore Mundy, but now it's a bit more open.
No, Kopek de Board will win this hands down. Salvador Mundy's had a race. He'll look better at Aintree, but that was significantly easier in his learning and in his getting there. But I mean, he's not at Kopek de Board's level. I didn't think Ian needed to improve from his running the DRF to win the Supreme. That was a good Supreme. I think he'll win this pretty handily. I mean, I think that Salvador Mundy, obviously, he's interesting. He's within £3, but I mean, I think. Is he a completely reformed character from Aintree, and plus he's already had that run, and as he kind of left his race there. Romeo Coolio did not run to the level that he did at Cheltenham, probably. Tripoli Flyer went off favourite, bitterly disappointing. Carabao got a lot closer than he did at Cheltenham. He'd been beaten 8 lengths at Aintree. At Cheltenham, he was beaten 57. He's got 18 lengths to find, Kopek de Board and that. If you think, Aintree's improved and he's fine, then he might half the deficit. But he's got plenty to find here. And I think Kopek de Board will keep winning, and I think he'll win this fairly handily.
Moving into the next one, obviously we've got the champion at Novices Chase over 3 mile, 1 furlong. Willie Mullins is declared Ballyburn, Champ Kiley and Perry Pass, Al Atlantique and the Brown Advisory winner Lecky Watson, Slade Steel, Gorgeous Tom, Stellar Story as well. Shaping up to be a good race. Ballyburn will go off favourite here, I think, but I would be very much looking to take him on.
Yeah, I'm going to see what the prices are coming out, but yeah, his jumping's kind of going to pot a little bit. He has one around here, which is a plus. And you just really don't know what to expect from him. And he's not a kind of favourite that you can kind of roll in with confidence. He could bounce back and win, and he'll probably win it and do it at short odds as well. He's still going to have his supporters. Whether I'll be one of them, I don't know. He's probably mapped out for this quite some time. Did have an entry. Fairyhouse didn't take it up, obviously, to come here.
Yep.
Seems to be the obvious, sensible move. Impressive in Perry Pass runs. He's pretty good at Aintree. He's in the mix. Lecky Watson can't be underestimated given his Brown Advisory winner. I also think Stellar Story could run quite well. I think he's probably a bit exposed, but I think, if the flat 8 kind of turn up and he's still kind of overpriced as he is, I think he's potentially interesting. You maybe want Gordon Elliott's yard to kind of pick up a little bit, but this might be a race where Willie Mullins' attentions elsewhere might let others into the party a little bit, and I think Stellar Story might be the one to. He's a kind of solid horse that I don't think lets you down too often, if at all. And he ran okay in this last year, and he is a course and distance winner as well beforehand. So, he likes the place. I don't think ground, which is going to dry out rapidly, come the off, is going to be that much of an issue for him. So, I think being in ground watch is really important. But yeah, I would be leaning that way just in value grounds at the moment with Stella Story.
Stellar Story at 4. Callum, we'll move into the 6 o'clock where Fact to File will take on Marine Nationale. Obviously, Ryanair winner versus Champion Chase winner. You've also got Solness, Captain Guinness, Sinicia, and El Fabiolo. Fact to File dropping back in trip. This could be really good. It just depends if you're. Will Fact to File have 2 mile pace?
Well, that's the question that you've got to answer when he's odds on, and at odds on, I'm not so sure. He shapes as if he can. His top speed figure suggests that it'll be fine, but you don't really know. There's a culture shock, and they will go really quick here because of the presence of Solness,
Yeah.
who only goes one way of running. And Marine Nationale, it's getting better. I don't think he'll take a backward step from the Champion Chase either. And to have a Champion Chase winner, as I think he was like 2-1 against 10-11, really, before Dex came in. To have a Champion Chase winner that big against a Ryanair winner over this trip, the sharper track, I find it a little bit surprising, to be honest. And I think at the prices, I think I would probably stick with Marine Nationale. I mean, I think Factifile potentially it's a superstar. He's taking his racing quite well, but Marine Nationale is building up this kind of good body of work. The track and trip are definitely no issue. The trip's a bit of a doubt for Factifile, and yeah, albeit well, it could handle it. I mean, the first couple of fences of Stallness really flies out the traps is going to be, something completely different altogether. So yeah, I mean, it's not going to be, again, a lot of these. I mean, it's a 5-day kind of marathon where you have to bet late, and you cannot bet in every race around here.
Ah.
I think at the prices again is a value kind of thing. I think I would probably have to side with Marine Nationale if it stays the kind of 10-11 versus 2-1 that it shapes up to be.
Just moving on quickly to Wednesday again, we don't have declarations for these, but we're just obviously going on the back of what we've got kind of early entries. The first grade one is obviously the 3 mile novices hurdle at 4:15. Final Demand and Jasmine DeVoe both look to be going for Willie Mullins. Yellow Clay at 9-2. Honesty Policy for 6-1, both of Gordon Elliott. Again, Final Demand getting up to 3 miles, I think, is the absolutely right call. I think he's better than Jasmine DeVoe.
Yes, I think the Yellow Clay might be better than both, and he's a bigger price. Yellow Clay was, I mean, he's beaten 3/4 lengths by the New Lion, who's probably going to be champion hurdle class, but he boxed on quite well. But he did put a good 4.5 lengths between himself and Final Demand in third, who looks more of a chaser at the two. He'll probably will improve more for the step up and trip, and I think that's maybe factored into it. But this is a sharp track, and the Yellow Clay certainly will get 3 miles. So yeah, I just think that probably 2-1 playing against 4-1 there is probably because of the trainer, and there's probably a bit more trust that Final Demand will improve and maybe hold up his form a little bit more than the Yellow Clay. But he does have a bit of work to do from the Turners Novice Hurdle, which is working out really, really well. So, and Gordon Elliott, he has won this before, and I think he's got better horses here than he does the Yellow Clay, and he does with Stellar Story and Better Days Ahead last year, who were third and fourth to two Mullins good horses, but they weren't massively behind. They were only like 4 or 5 lengths behind. So I think it should be tighter between them. And I think at the prices, the Yellow Clay is probably the way to go. And I think the rest have got a lot to find. But yeah, the Turner's form seems to be a better form line than the Albert Bartlett, even though Yasmin DeVoe does certainly have potential and it's getting a lot better. But I think his jumping might be under a bit more scrutiny here in a sharper track.
I'm going to give a wee mention to card counter for Gordon Elliott, who was second behind Sarfatal, who might cover the wee minute, but fell on debut over hurdles at Nace and then went out won twice. First at Punchestown, beat Dr. Eggman, who has obviously been on and done pretty well since he's obviously shredded his maiden, but I think there is a proper 3 mile horse in here. Maybe need the ground to be a bit softer, but I think it's 16-1. I think he could be that kind of Elliott improver that might find his feet in here. I think he's probably an each way player in this, depending what goes, obviously.
Yeah, he's unexposed. He's in that could be anything category. I see honesty policies. I mean, maybe he could be similar mold to that, and so you don't really know what to expect.
Yeah.
Fling him in, get one entry, and he can actually run really well. So yeah, I mean, it's indeed a meeting really where you can certainly have a few flyers on it, because you just don't really know what horses have really kind of had enough for the season, or just kind of maybe coming to themselves towards the end. Who's kind of targeted what. It's one of those meetings where you got to kind of look just beyond the obvious kind of form angles as well, and see what's really available to you.
Moving on to the 450, we've got the Champion Flat Race. This is a race that obviously Willie Mullins tends to dominate. It's not been that way the past couple of years, just obviously with I remember A Dream to Share obviously winning the race a couple of years ago, but as a race he tends to dominate. I don't think this is a vintage crop of bumper horses. I think you would agree on that.
Yeah, I mean, we don't really know, because a lot of his horses have come out really late, and the likes of Copacabana Game of Inches, I think the Champion Bumper demands of that just probably came too soon for them. But Bambino Fever was a really good ready winner of it. It didn't look a great race, but they can improve in different rates. And he's won this with Redemption Day last year, Fast
12
Vegas,
times he won it.
Colreevy, Tornado Flyer, Bells Hill won it, Shane's Hill won it. Yeah, I mean, very good horses. And there will be one here. Bambino Fever does have that Grade 3 option at the end of the card.
Mm-hmm.
I'd imagine being a Champion Bumper winner, she'd come here. And on all known form, she's the one to beat.
I think Sar Fatal is the best Mullins bumper horse we've seen this season. I think he's put in the best Mullins bumper performance. Again, it just depends on jockey. I don't think he'll run them all, but I'm interested to see what
He
jockey
might.
takes the ride.
And
I
then
mean, Patrick.
nowadays, I mean, why wouldn't you? I mean, if you're flinging 10 in Sandown Gold Cups and 11
Yeah,
in the trying further, he could basically do what he wants. Yeah, Casafal, if you don't think the Champion Bumper's a strong bit of form, then he's always one, isn't he? Out of the Mullins battalion anyway. There's a good one for No Meads called Cannon.
yeah.
He's got good RPRs that puts him in second favourite. Yard in form, off 88 days.
I thought
He's
Seal
probably
Lim
been
was good at entry actually.
yeah, he's probably been absolutely primed for it. Green Splendor was decent at entry.
Yeah,
Just whether he can come on again. The one at the Champion Bumper, the turnaround was probably too much for him because he's such a big unit, and he's 12-1 right now, and he went off sixes. It's probably a game of inches. He probably needs maybe a touch softer ground, but they're going to water it pretty consistently, so there will be some yielding in it, some give, and he obviously he shed his main tag around Punchestown, so he can deal with sharp tracks, and he won that in the bridle.
mm-hmm.
And maybe this has just been his race. The Champion Bumper was all too much for him. It was all too much too soon. The ground was against him. A lot of things were against him there. They also, I don't think overly went that kind of quick either. Not a lot get in it from the back. I don't think it really ran to suit him because he's a big kind of staying galloper type, really. But you can gallop at Punchestown and get away with it. They might go a more strong pace here, and if he does, I think he can come into the equation. Given his reputation, you're getting twice the price from in what really should be a similar, if not lesser, race. So me, bumper's not my thing, but on value grounds, I think a small each way bet on him about the 12-1 mark wouldn't be the worst idea in the world. But you do need to know what turns up and the tactical angle of it, and which jockey's going to be on what.
Yeah, I know. Let's move into half five. I think we can have a wee bit of a conversation about this race despite not having declarations because Galloping Deschamps is 6-4 here. Not the best record at Punchestown. Spillane Tower is 5-2. Banbridge 4s. Gaelic Warrior I don't think would go as Ely de Tomp. So you've got left with probably Monty Star and Nick Rocket. 6-4 Galloping Deschamps after Cheltenham at Punchestown. It's very skimpy for me. I think I would probably leave this alone.
I think this is a gift. I think this is an
Do you think-
absolute gift.
Okay.
What's in this that beats them?
That's the thing, but we've also got the other two things.
6-4. So Spillane's Tower. I mean, John Durkin, but over 3 miles soft ground. Haven't seen him for ages. There's an excuse after excuse comes out. He was meant to go Fairyhouse, didn't. Meant to go Aintree, didn't. And now this has all of a sudden apparently been a long-term plan.
Is it purely though that you would go with Galloping Deschamps at 6-4? Because I think there's too many question marks for me to go in at that price. for
I mean,
galloping.
Banbridge could get a trip, but he had a hard race at the Gold Cup. He looks like he's done enough really this season. I think he's turned a bit sour. Monty Starr, Henry de Brom had Yalla in the gut. Nick Rocket, how on earth is going to back up a Grand National success against Galloping Deschamps? And he's £8 clear of them. And the only horse that's beat him in a meaningful race this season isn't here.
I'm
And
surprised
you're
at
getting
that.
64.
I'm surprised. I know the way you're thinking isn't here.
No, because, I mean, have you seen the Gavin Cromwell form post Cheltenham?
Yes, I know,
That's
but
why. I mean,
it's still
I think
skimpy for me. It's
but he's got accidents. He should be odds on. He should be on form.
on form, yeah.
It's not as if he's bombed out all the time either.
Nah, but it's just the track, really. Like
He's won round here.
I know, but that was
He's not
he's
pulling
a
up.
very
He's not
different horse.
pulling
I
up
know.
or being well beaten. And this is a far, far easier race. And you're getting a better price.
I did
This
not
is
expect you to be
the
that
first time he's
confident
been
on
odds
him.
again since a reappearance from the John Durkin, where he's still got within 2 lengths of Spillane Tower, despite it being clearly a worse trip for him. You know what I mean? And he's backed that up better than Spillane Tower has.
I'm going to slightly contradict myself. I think if he runs to his Gold Cup, I think if he runs to his Gold Cup form, he'll win. But are you
Yeah.
taking that risk at that price? I don't. I'm surprised you're as confident as you are. I thought you'd be.
Price doesn't put me off. I thought he'd be 46 and he isn't. 64. I'm not confident he'll win. You're not confident about his well-being, but in that price, it's very, very good. There was nothing to suggest to me in the Gold Cup that he's gone. He
No,
ran perfectly fine in ground that's a bit quicker than him. He's bumped into a ridiculously unexposed horse that was put away for it. His Leopardstown efforts subsequently, where he both won at 5-6 and 1-2, are fine. He won that well. He won that with authority. And, last year he got beat when he had enough, only by a bit in a length from Fast or Slow, with Hewitt in the King George, who was in third. So, I mean, it's a similar race. It was £10 below par. But Fast or Slow was clear second favourite in the Gold Cup, fell in Axe Spring Punchestown absolutely brilliantly. Even the year before that, he bumped into him, beat by 2 lengths. He still beat Brave Man's Game, beat Envoy Allen, beat, those type of horses. And Fast or Slow bumped into a massive improver, and he was able to back it up at Grade 1 company as well. And he can only do it at Punchestown and beat him elsewhere. But I think for a horse of that consistent, long, high profile, I think getting odds against here is pretty good, because you don't really get that with them. And yeah, Punchestown's concern. Well, I mean, he's won a Grade 1 around here, 2.5 miles in 2022, where he absolutely smashed
he
Fakir
was
the
very
day.
good. Yeah.
What Kalua, Fast or Slow, absolutely silly vanilla that day. He's able to do it. We won a Grade 1 novice hurdle around there. Beating Gentleman's Game by 12 lengths. Tell me something, girl beating 18 lengths. He can do it. The trip's fine, and maybe he's had his kind of wee dip at Cheltenham rather than Punchestown, and he'll be fine. How good is Spillane Tower? We probably haven't seen him to great effect, not in the King George, but he's missed a few better spring targets in this. Will he be too fresh for him, in too good form? He might well be. Banbridge could bounce back. I think it's a big ask after his Gold Cup effort. If there's concerns about Galloping Deschamps being in second, Banbridge, it just was completely unsuitable. But better ground, slight back and trip. I think he's more interested in Spillane Tower. Spillane Tower he's not going to get his ground either, is he? Really?
No.
And he was well held by Banbridge in the King George. And this is a kind of similar test. So, yeah, I mean, you can make cases of these, but I think you could get a horse of Galloping Deschamps' stature at 64 in a race like this. Even if there's small concerns in the back of the mind, I think that's pretty good going. And Spillane Tower's a hold-up horse, isn't he? I mean, Galloping Deschamps could completely dictate this.
Yeah.
Dictate this in the front. Banbridge is going to be held up here to get the trip. So Spillane Tower. Galloping Deschamps could easily make a call on this. I don't see anything taking him on.
Okay. I did not expect you to be.
Well, I mean, why is he 60? I mean, I've seen a litany, right? John Bond was 1-2. Gaelic Warrior 5-6. This horse is as much in hand against anything else in this than they two did at Sandown Saturday. and you were never, ever, ever going to get odds against at the off for them. Here, we're looking at 64 in the face. And he is, but if you asked any racing fan in the street who's the best horse in this race, it's a two-time Gold Cup winner. That can win at Punchestown. I mean, for all the woeful prices we've seen all season, 64, I think this favourite's pretty good.
Okay. So very much a galloping de champ.
He should be 4 to 6.
Let's just go quickly on kind of best bets. Anything, first 2 days, obviously, we will be back Thursday, Friday. We will cover Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Thursday show. Anything you like in the first day that's maybe caught your eye in the declarations?
No, not particularly, no.
I think I'll maybe give a wee word to Luminous Light for the McCanns, with Sean Flanagan on board. Some decent form last year. Won his last 2 starts at Clonmel and Cork. 1 over chases, 1 over hurdles. Comes in here, I think, a good chance of a decent mark in the 305 of 118. I would give him a mention for this. Again, we will obviously have the column as well. Callum, I cannot thank you enough for joining me in this show. We'll see you on Thursday.
Yeah, no worries. We're back in the middle of Punchestown. We've got the guineas as well to deal with. So yeah, there's going to be a lot to contemplate.
Brilliant. Thanks very much everyone tuned in, folks. Follow us on social media to see your columns and Callum's picks on throughout the week. And we'll see you all on Thursday for our Punchestown and Guineas preview.